Number two, the action of his faith. Not only do we see the object of his faith, but we see the action of his faith. David didn't just talk about his faith in God, he acted on it. I like it. You know, there's a lot of people that do a lot of talking nowadays, right? A lot of talking, but no acting. David, here you see in verse 40, you can look at verse 40 real quickly, but David didn't just talk the talk, he walked the walk. Because in verse 40 it says, and he took his staff in his hand, and he chose him 5 smooth stones out of the brook, and he put them in the shepherd's bag, which he had even in a scrip, and his sling was in his hand, and he drew near to the Philistine. He said, I'm not just going to stand back here and talk about it. I'm going to get involved in this. I'm going to do something about it. As pastor and author Tony Evans says, and I quote, "You can believe with your heart, but you have to move with your feet. If you're believing in your heart, but your feet aren't moving, then your faith isn't going anywhere." End of quote. I like that. So, I believe that God can do the impossible. Tell your feet that. Right? We talk about it all the time. Oh, our God's a great God. Our God's an awesome God. Our God can do the miraculous. And step out there and face that giant. Don't back up. Don't let up. You go right into the battle. And that's what David did. The Bible clearly teaches us that we are not to live by fear, but we are to live by faith. 2 Timothy 1:7, "For God hath not given us the spirit of fear." Stop right there. If you have fear, then it wasn't given to you by God. You think about that. You say, well, I'm facing this big giant in my life right now, and I'm scared to death. I don't know if I'm going to make it. I don't know if I'm going to get through this. Let me tell you, God's not telling you those things. That's the voice of Satan. That's the voice of your old flesh. The Bible says, "For God hath not given us the spirit of fear, but of power and of love and of a sound mind." When you find yourself in the valley of Elah, it's time for your feet to put into action what you truly believe deep down in your heart. When you face the giants of life, don't be like the army of Israel and be paralyzed by fear, but rather be like David and be energized by your faith in God. Don't retreat back into your tent, but head to the brook of Elah and gather those 5 stones. Be ready by faith to not only kill Goliath, but if need be, to kill all 4 of his brothers who are giants as well. The purpose of his faith. We see the object of his faith is God. We see the action of his faith as he head right into the battle to face Goliath, the giant. But then notice the purpose of his faith. David's purpose for having faith in God to face this giant can be seen in verse 46. "That all the earth may know that there is a God in Israel." At that moment, David understood that this was not about him, but rather it was all about the glory of God. He realized that all these people were watching what was about to take place. And he thought, you know what? When all is said and done, I want them to know it's all about God. It's not about me. It's about God. He knew that the overall purpose was for people to know God and to worship God and to glorify Him as the one true living God. I hope that if you are in the valley of Elah today, that somehow this message has been an encouragement and a motivation to make that valley a valley of faith.